Thank you, Anjana ma'am. Am I audible to all?
Yes, audible and visible.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. A very good evening to one and all present here. It's been immense privilege to introduce Mohammad Asif Khan, a professor and associate dean at College of Computing and IT, University of Doha for Science and Technology, Qatar. He earned his PhD from the National University of Singapore before joining Johns Hopkins University, USA, as a faculty member. He later became part of the pioneering JHU team to establish a collaboration with Perdana University in Malaysia, where he served as the founding dean of School of Data Sciences and founding director of the Center for Bioinformatics. He was also a visiting professor at Bezmiran Vakıf University in Istanbul through Turkey's International Fellowship for Outstanding Researchers. Dr. Khan is currently the Vice President of Asia Pacific Bioinformatics Network, APBioNet, and so his research focuses on biological data warehousing and bioinformatics applications in virus study, immune responses, vaccine drug design, and diseases biomarkers. Today, he will be sharing his valuable views on artificial intelligence and machine learning for sustainability. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Natanjana. And can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Good.
yes, Asif, we can hear you.
Thank you so
Yes,
much. Madam Principal, dear organizers and participants from the university and from everywhere else that they're joining, it's a great pleasure to be able to be part of this, this event. But before that, let me just share my slides so we can. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes, Asif.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
Yes,
you so
perfect.
much. Great, thank you. So yeah, thank you so much to the organizers for inviting me to be part of this Hans Raj Mahila Maha Vidyalaya 6-day online faculty development program. And I'm really honored, to be the first one opening. So there are a lot of high expectations. I hope I don't disappoint, and I hope this will be something where it's not just you learning, but I'm going to be learning from all of you also. So it's going to be a dialogue. Hopefully at the end, we'll have a chance to, discuss some of the points that I'll be covering. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay. So I thank you so much for that kind introduction. So I was not sure, what would be the level of the introduction. It was rather detailed. So I don't think I need to go through this much, but I just want to highlight my journey in general very quickly. And I must note that I'm going to highlight that actually I'm originally from India. So it's always a pleasure to be able to speak to an Indian audience and to be able to contribute back to where I came from. So I actually, I was born in India. I'm from UP, Uttar Pradesh, and I spent 8 years of a very good childhood. And then thanks to my father's move, I moved to Brunei. I spent 13 years of my life there. So this is where I did my primary school, secondary school, and then high school, etc. before university, so pre-university. And I picked up Malay, so I can speak Malay. At one time, my Malay was better than my English. It's always good to know, a few more languages. And I then moved to Singapore. So this is where I did my bachelor's. I did a bachelor's applied science degree in biotechnology at the National University of Singapore, one of the best in the world. And I ended up kind of staying put and didn't really move around. I did my master's after my bachelor's. And I also ended up doing my PhD at the same place, National University of Singapore. So much so that I ended up becoming a Singapore citizen. So I'm a proud citizen of the country. And so NUS, in short, National University of Singapore, has this policy that it would like its graduates to go out and make an impact. So, I kind of took that a little too seriously. So I went out and I went to Johns Hopkins University in the US, in Baltimore. And actually did, not to boast, but I did really well during my PhD. I ended up publishing like 24 papers.
Asif,
So
just your voice is a bit low. Can you adjust your mic a little bit more? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yes,
Okay.
it's better now.
Okay. Thank you so much. So, so I got a faculty position in the US. I kind of skipped postdoc, and so that was nice. And then, not long after, I didn't really even finish 1 year. I got selected by Johns Hopkins to be part of an international collaboration and project in Malaysia, whereby we were supposed to set up a brand new university in Malaysia in collaboration with the government. So I moved to Malaysia. This was something I thought I'll be there for 2 years, ended up being 8 years. No regrets. One of the best, some of my best times were there, and this is where I did some of my notable works in my life so far. And eventually, after 8 years, I got recommended by Johns Hopkins to do something similar in Turkey, Istanbul, to help develop a bioinformatics bioinformatics entity, bioinformatics program, and all that. So I didn't leave Malaysia, but I got seconded. So I was spending 9 months in Turkey and 3 months in Malaysia. So I spent 3 years in Turkey, and then now I am in Qatar. I've been here for 2.5 years. Very soon it'll be 3 years. So this is the journey that I've taken. I've learned a lot from these different places, and there's much to kind of I think there's a lot of value in traveling and really learning from others. And likewise, I hope I'll be able to share something with you today, and that I will be able to learn something from you today too. All right, very quickly, these are some of the roles that I played. I set up the Center for Bioinformatics, founding the Info School of Data Sciences. I was the Chief Data Officer, and some of the other things I don't want to go into, but also in terms of professional society. And Altorco was a company that I founded as part of the university. So it's always good for a university to also have a commercial arm. It helps in various developments. Anyway, right now I'm in Qatar. This university is also kind of a startup. It seems like I like to be in places that are starting up, so I can make a huge difference, or as much as possible that I can. So UDST, University of Doha for Science and Technology, this is where I'm based. This is the first applied university in Qatar. It's rather young. It's less than 3 years, or about 3 years. But it has a history of 20 years, because previously it was College of North Atlantic Canada. We have 5 colleges, 70 programs, 8,000 students, 9,000 alumni because of the previous history as a college. And majority of our students are not Qatari, but rather international students. As you can imagine, there are a lot of expats here, so their kids are studying with us. Anyway, that's a quick introduction. Just to follow up on what was covered, I want to dive straight into the topic today. The topic today is AI and machine learning for sustainability. Now, I'm actually gonna break this into 2 parts. I'm going to talk about sustainability in an era of disruption, really for us to understand what kind of a time period that we are going through. I think it's important to have that perspective. And then we will look at AI and ML for sustainability, and really realize that it's a double-edged sword. And how do we then navigate that landscape? All right, without further ado, let's go with the first part. Now, before I begin, as a teacher, it's good to make sure that we cover definitions, so everybody's on the same page. Now, everybody knows what's an AI, artificial intelligence. It's the development of computer systems that are capable of performing tasks that mimics like a human task. In fact, so much so that you are not even able to differentiate whether it was done by a human or a machine. All right, so that's AI, and these days AI is really booming. There's a lot of buzzword, and people are really using AI in a big way. So it's very timely that your faculty development program is actually talking about this very pertinent topic. Now, often you will hear ML, machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence. Let's put this into perspective. They are not really kind of different. Well, they are different, but AI is that big umbrella, and within that comes the subset of machine learning, and within that comes the subset of deep learning. So machine learning is a subset of AI techniques which use statistical methods, and deep learning is one such method that has become really popular and has really defined the things that we see today. All right, so that's why it's kind of given a special importance. So deep learning is a big deal, and machine learning, there are other methods out there, and AI, of course, besides these statistical approaches, there are other approaches that need to be considered. So that's kind of a big umbrella. It's quite recently it became a field of its own, so it's really a big deal and there have been a lot of notable disruptions that you must have heard over the years. All right, so we've got the definition covered. There was this interesting tidbit that I just wanted to share with you. There's something called Friedman's fundamental theorem of informatics, which states that basically essentially defining augmented intelligence, a person working in partnership with an information resource is better than that same person unassisted. Now, an information resource is a general term. It could be, these days your generative AI, ChatGPT, or whatever else that you're using, or, data warehouses or tools that you use for your own work. So we are much more efficient with these tools than without them. So augmented intelligence. So it's like extra brains that you can have with the use of all these different tools and approaches that are out there. Now, also, sustainability is the keyword. So I think it's important that we all understand what sustainability means. So here's the definition. There might be various other definitions, but this is the one that I put forth over here. Meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Basically, we should not be selfish. We need to be also caring about the next generation, our kids, our daughters, sons, and grandkids down the line. They should be able to enjoy what we are benefiting from, the resource, and the opportunities that we have. So we need to be mindful of what they are gonna get. So we do not want to leave them, deprived of all this. So environment is very important, and environment is suffering a lot. And we saw the change that happened during COVID when we were shut down. It seemed like the earth was breathing. Waters were becoming much cleaner on their own. So that is kind of, you could literally see the impact that human beings have done, made to earth. So environment protection, reducing the human impact is something that we need to consider. Of course, a lot of this is driven by economic growth, economic opportunities, and we want to generate wealth, of course, but we need to be mindful of how we generate this wealth and really in a responsible way, so that we take care of this, so that we can sustain the generation of this wealth and not just be without it after X number of years. And of course, we also need to think about the society. We do not want just a group of people benefiting from all of this and others are being deprived of this. So some sort of a equal level playing field is a very important thing to consider about. All right, so this is kind of the definition or the scope that we are thinking for the items that I'm going to cover. All right, so this era of disruption, believe it or not, we are going through an era of disruption, and I'm sure you believe it, because we probably have seen so much disruption in the time that we have been alive that probably our parents or grandparents didn't really see in their time. So, and it's a new environment, and this new environment requires new strategy in order to to kind of sustain and to develop and to move forward. Now we are underseeing a technology revolution. Of course, this technology revolution is driving climate change, and climate change is going to affect us. Water levels are rising, temperatures are increasing, globalization, people are traveling. COVID was able to spread, or SARS-CoV-2 was able to spread thanks to globalization. It very quickly became a pandemic. And of course, geopolitics, we are ever more so connected, and we are ever more so, sometimes intertwined in the geopolitics of our neighbors and others. And of course, there's also a change in demographic structure that is going to impact us knowingly or directly or indirectly, and that we need to be concerned about. Now, a lot of this is driven by industrial revolution. I think you all are somewhat familiar with this. We started with Industry 1.0 around 1700. This is where the steam power engine came into sight. We have the weaving loom, mechanization, and then we moved to Industry 2.0 about 100 years later, where you have mass production, factories, assembly line, electrical energy. Then we moved to Industry 3.0, and this is I think this is where most of us would have seen, because this is when computers became predominant, became common. I remember when I first got hold of my computer, it was around mid 90s. So it seems like ages ago. but it's actually not too long ago. And so Industry 3.0, and then currently, which is now, we are in Industry 4.0. You might think we should be in Industry 5.0. There are talks about it. There are discussions. European Union actually has put some proposals for this, but it's still a concept. It has not been really kind of adopted yet. So we are still in Industry 4.0. This is where the cyber physical systems, IoTs and networks are becoming more connected. And we are not just using desktops at home, but rather be connected with all kinds of devices. Our watches, rings these days, Ultra Human based in Bangalore is producing some really nice rings that can detect and measure all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of that's happening. And this is Industry 4.0. This is where we are. And this Industry 4.0 actually is impacting us in all kinds of ways. So of course, we are impacted as individuals, which you can see at the bottom. Our identity is morphed now. You know, we used to maybe read newspapers, or our parents used to read newspapers. These days we get the news from our digital, you know, devices, and there's also a big deal about fake news and all that. So our identity, who we are, morality and ethics and human connection, managing public and private information is all very different these days. We are so happy to share publicly. There were days in the olden days, I remember we were just not daring enough to just go out and declare a lot of our personal information. So it's a very different society compared to our parents. So equality and the middle class. So it's a society where I think there's a better opportunity for us to have some sort of equality and equity in the society, nationally and globally. Governments, countries are changing in many different ways. Automation is becoming a big deal. In fact, you know, there was a problem recently I had with my identity card. I could get it done in 5 minutes. This is something that we could never imagine many years ago. You have a machine, you print, and you're done, all automatically, you know, digitized. So, and businesses are also changing. Expectation of the owners and the consumers are different. You know, it's more data driven. We are more, well, you know, what we buy, how we buy, it's kind of guided or being affected by the data of many of us purchasing these things. So, and of course, collaboration, innovation, how we collaborate, how we work with others. It's no longer just confined to within our locality, but it has expanded. And of course, all this impacts the, you know, economy of the country. So this IR 4.0 has a huge impact. It's going to be impacting us for a lot more, and it's going to be even more so when we hit IR 5.0. And there are four main effects from all this industrial revolution, the impacts that we just saw. The customer expectations. So you as a customer, your expectations are very different. You have data available to you readily. When you want to buy something, you want to do benchmark, you want to do some assessments before just, you know, buying something. When you might even want to hold off and see if you can get a better deal later on, or you can get a better deal from overseas. So we are very different creature as a result of, you know, all these developments. And products that are being developed are guided by data. Do people really need? In what way do they need? How can we improve? Based on previous historical encounters of how, you know, certain product or previous iterations of these products have been built. And of course, collaboration, innovation. This itself, I'm sitting in Qatar, you are sitting in India, and we are talking, we are discussing, we will be discussing in a while, we're sharing things. So this is also something that has changed. I remember being, we had MRIC in the olden days, and then Skype, and that's kind of gone, and then Zoom, and now you have Teams and other things coming up. And of course, new operating models is becoming digital, and our newborns, our kids born are actually digital native. They're not being transformed from the previous model to the digital model, but they're actually born within the digital model. So there are big changes. These are not small changes, and this is going to impact and affect how we, navigate ourselves within that landscape. And a lot of this is because of a trend in ICT consumption. We as human creatures have a desire to connect and communicate. So when I think from 2007, when iPhone came out, it really became easy for people to be able to communicate with others. The uptake really kicked off. It was, we had smartphones before that, but the adoption was not as significant until it became really very simple to use. So, there is a big trend in uptake in ICT developments, and digital platform penetration is very high. A lot of this is to do with communication. As I mentioned, we just have this desire to connect and communicate with others. So a lot of these have really taken off in a big way. And for example, blogs, the other ways of communicating from the yesteryears are not as popular anymore. They're declining in terms of, being a reference point or being a place where people go to. We rather, communicate via these instant messaging apps and other platforms that are supporting and facilitating these. So there's a big change that we are going through, and the behavior of internet users. This is actually statistics from Malaysia, and you can see, communication by text, social networking platform. This is what people use the internet for, work. And if you look at the bottom, like blogs and selling goods, it's also increasing. But these are some of the lower utilizations for this. But this is also going to be something that we will see an uprise as they become much more seamless and easier to follow. And there's so many networking platforms out there. Facebook is very popular in Malaysia, but in a different country, like in the US, Twitter is much bigger. So you have these different dynamics of these platforms, but the key message is communication is becoming really key. And, we want to be able to quickly communicate very rapidly. And these platforms are really supporting, and more new ones are also, appearing, and some of these are also disappearing. This is just trying to understand in the disruptive era that we are in. And this is a pyramid that you probably have heard of, Maslow's theory of motivation, hierarchy of needs. Basically, it was a study that was done by Maslow in 1940s. What motivates what motivates living things in general, higher living things, of course, and this was extended to humans. And for humans, basically, we have our physiological needs, food, water, and warmth. And the idea is that these need to be fulfilled first before we start looking for these other higher level needs. So psychological needs, I think we are all blessed to have many of these needs met. Then we go to the next one, safety, which is concerning security, and then belonging and love. This is the next one. And the following after that will be the esteem needs, feeling of accomplishment. So we do, bachelor's degree, master's degree. Some of us pursue PhD, then we go for careers and all that. So this is esteem needs, and ultimately self-actualization is like reaching this height of nirvana, where everything just makes sense and you're just mindful. And that's the kind of level that we want to be able to achieve. And technology is something that can actually facilitate and get us up to that level. And but there's also a downside of this. We also becoming too dependent on technology, so much so that you would probably agree with me that these days, before even our physiological needs, we have a greater need for Wi-Fi and battery. And one place where you really see this is at the airports, when batteries die and people just rush to look for charging points, and they charge and they sit on the floor waiting for the battery the phone to be charged. And Wi-Fi used to be something that we would be searching for, looking for free Wi-Fi. You would buy a coffee just to get a Wi-Fi. It is becoming much easier these days to be able to get Wi-Fi with roaming and all that, but battery is something still of a problem. So even our basic needs, there's a shift in what we consider to be an essential component. And so this is the new basic need in the cyber era that we are in. All right, so we need to recognize this. And the disruption that I talked about is really as a result of a combination of different elements. So AI is a big contributor to this disruption, robotic developments, data sciences, which kind of overlaps with AI, IoT, Internet of Things, smart devices, your rings and all that, cloud technology, of course, biotechnology, which is something I'm going to cover later, big data, that there's just immense data out there, and drones are becoming very popular these days and becoming a key way of really communicating and connecting with society, or and also fulfilling certain roles that might be challenging and difficult. All right, and we can already see implementation of these. Here's an example of robotic education. In fact, in our College of Computing and IT, we have Pepper, a robot that we use to teach students about coding and other aspects of IoT. So robotic is becoming quite a norm, and a lot of this is facilitated by the change in size of these computing devices. So physical size has become smaller, but capacity has become bigger. These are just some very old pictures that you probably can relate to. You know, the mainframe of 1950s and compared to a thumb drive with terabytes of data in today. And this is only increasing. So you know, these are really driving the changes that we see. And I think the best example of these disruption would be really looking at these examples. So Alibaba is the world's highest volume, maybe not anymore, but at one point it was the world's highest volume merchant, and it owned no inventory. I think Airbnb is something we all are familiar with, world's largest accommodation provider, but it doesn't own any property. Uber in India, I think you have something else. It was, well, at one time you could say world's largest taxi company, owns no car. Facebook, etc. Netflix, largest movie house, owns no cinemas. Right. So I think and I think what's nice is the opportunity that these disruptions provide. It's all not too bad. I think these disruptions, if we are able to, you know, jump on that bandwagon and lead the wave, we might be able to create new opportunities, new business opportunities that will transform society, community, and ourselves in that process, hopefully for the better and a sustainable future. Right. So, and technology development is much faster than other fields. So here's an example. Here's I think I can use the laser here. Yeah, here's an example. So like technology changes much more rapidly compared to business productivity. And this gap is a gap in potential. So because business is not catching up as quickly as technology, so there is that gap in potential, which will be realized if businesses close that gap. And of course, when it comes to these changes, you know, individuals are much more adaptive. So they are much more nimble and agile compared to businesses. Businesses, I've seen some banks still using older versions of Windows. You probably have seen that too. So sometimes they have restrictions, but individuals are one of those that are very quick to adapt. So the earlier we adopt, the better we'll be able to benefit from these developments. And of course, in terms of jobs, they do have a big impact in jobs. So jobs have been lost in agriculture, for example, because of automation. Of course, automation is not everywhere, but where automation does happen, for example, in Europe, I've seen this, there's a big loss in job. They use machinery in a big way. But at the same time, there are also jobs that are being created. So trade, retail, wholesale have seen an uptick in the number of jobs. And this is a nice, you know, indication of, you know, percentage of jobs lost. So for example, if I take Malaysia over here, this is a place where I stayed. So job lost because of automation is around 23%. And Malaysia is a place where they are quite big in automation. And of course, if you go higher, like Japan, where automation is even bigger a deal, then the job loss is even more. So Singapore is not too far. I think Germany, it's also pretty close. Singapore is here, and some of the countries in the Middle East, like Bahrain, Qatar, are also very advanced in terms of adopting. I mean, if you come over here and you drive, you see cameras, you know, taking pictures for people of people speeding. In fact, they even have cameras. If you're holding phone in your car, they have cameras above some of these overhead bridges that will scan and see if you're holding, and you get a fine. All right. So that's I remember in Malaysia, we would see policemen hiding and taking a video. In Qatar, I've never seen those because they use these machines, you know, to just capture anyone speeding. And you see tons of cameras everywhere. So of course, you know, those people who are doing the jobs of what these cameras are doing now are going to be lost. So the more automated we become, the more we adopt, there is a good chance that jobs will be lost, especially those that are kind of mundane, repetitive, and all that. And but the good is, it's not all bad, because, you know, actually technology creates more jobs than it destroys, and mainly actually these are jobs outside the industry itself. So for example, 19,000 when personal computers kind of took hold, 19,000 plus jobs were created compared to 3,000 plus jobs that were destroyed. So the net is going to be positive. And of course, it's important that we adapt quickly in order to not to be saved from that loss, but also take kind of benefit from that change that's happening. And what's important from all of this is there's a need for new literacy, and I'm sure at your institute, your organization, this is already being implemented so the new literacy to face the new era of IR 4.0, and of course what's coming in the future. In the old literacy model, you had reading, writing, and math. These are very, very basic. They're still very important, but what's important today, the new, is data literacy, the ability for students to be able to read, analyze, and use information, in particular big data in the world. So these skills should be embedded within our programs, not just computer science program, but any program out there, I think, should have some elements of this. In fact, today, I just heard from my dean the announcement that the government of Qatar wants to introduce data governance course as a compulsory course for all, I think, university students, right? It doesn't matter which organization they are with. And in UAE, they are also doing something similar for data literacy and other needs. So there is that kind of top-down approach that's also happening, where governments mandate this because they recognize the importance of this, and they do not want to leave it in the hands of people to decide whether they should have this or not. So a mix of top-down and bottom-up approaches, I think, is going to be very helpful to achieve a very good hopefully 100% data literacy, technology literacy, coding. We call it programming. There are just many languages out there, but this is also should be one of the lowest languages that us and our kids in the future should be able to naturally be able to be conversant in and be able to use and utilize, just like English or their mother tongue. So technology literacy is very important. Understand how technology applications work, coding, AI, and all this. This is something. So it seems like there's a lot of pressure for the new generation to be able to pick up this, but I think what's nice also, they are born in this era, so I think it's much easier for them to pick up this from early stages than maybe for some of us. Human literacy, AI is going to replace a lot of things, and I think what is going to really remain is this human interaction, human connection. So humanity, communication, creativity, and all that, I think it's still going to be much needed, and this is also something that we need to be able to teach our students. So these are the three key pillars that we need to have, and it's not just about teaching this, but rather providing a competitive edge, because a lot of places are actually doing this, but having that competitive edge is very important. That's going to be the differentiator, not just to do it, but to do it in the best way possible. And if you look at World Economic Forum, they publish every year what are the top 10 skills, and you notice from here, analytical thinking and innovation, active learning, these are really soft skills. You don't really see much of these hard skills, except maybe at the bottom there. But at the top there, there's these really soft skills. And if you take look at factors that determine success of individuals, it turns out that number one is not IQ. IQ is 21st. So you don't have to have the highest IQ in order to be very, very successful. You don't have to go to the best school. You don't have to go to Harvard to be very successful. The level playing, the playing field has been leveled. There's an equal opportunity these days, and a lot of this is thanks to these technological advances that we see. And graduating with the best grades. I'm not encouraging not to get the best grades, but graduating with the best grades is not necessarily the most important factor to determine success. So what are the factors, top 10 factors that determine success? And again, you see this amplification of these soft skills. 10 success factors: honesty. This is what our parents teach us. Discipline, interaction, good interpersonal skills, support from life partner, marrying, choosing well, and having a partner that supports us in our journey, of course, both ways. work harder than others. There's there's no substitute to that. I remember when I moved from Brunei to Singapore, my PhD supervisor, my honors, and then who became my PhD, was like, Asif, you come from a place and where you didn't have that many opportunities compared to what Singaporean kids had. You have to work extra hard just to be able to compete with them, and that's something I still remember. So I had to burn some midnight oil and go through all kinds of hardship just to catch up and try to get the best of what's available out there. Of course, passion is very important. Good leadership, to be surrounded with good leaders. I think your organization is blessed to have a principal that's really caring, and the awards that I heard. That means I think you're in good hands, good leadership, and it's also important that we imbibe this good leadership within us. It's good to be a good leader, and one of the ways to be a good leader is by providing opportunities to others. It's not always about us, but rather the growth of everyone that we are working with. Spirit and competitive personality, good life management. This that ties very closely with discipline, ability to sell ideas and products. This is not news to you. This is something you probably know, but sometimes we fail to recognize that these is what is really going to determine the success of our students, our kids. And the sad part is this is something that's taught at home. Very few of these are really kind of transferred to the university level, and although but they are not really well structured. They are kind of optional. Students find it themselves, pursue themselves. I think it'll be really nice if these become some embedded core elements of the programs that you have. I know we have these graduate attributes, but what we are really doing to assess, to measure, to quantify that our students are really achieving them. We have exams to assess their technological knowledge, the technical knowledge, but we don't really have much exams to really see how honest, how disciplined, and etc. some of these things are. So I think it'll be nice, and I hope your college would be able to take the lead in some of these aspirations. So education strategy, what's the strategy in this era of disruption? I think universities must align with the industrial era 4.0, and it's important that we don't only have the traditional way of teaching, but we also need to embrace hybrid blended learning. And this is just a very good example. And of course, research is very important, it's critical. That's going to keep us to be on the vanguards of things. So direction of research must support new knowledge, creation of new knowledge, and curriculum reorientation. Oftentimes, because of accreditation, our curriculum we can't change easily because of accreditation requirements. But I think our accreditation bodies need to change with time, and so that our curriculum can adapt quickly. We don't want to wait a 5-year cycle before we make the next change. All right. So, and this is something that would require dialogue between universities, colleges, and of course the ministries, so that they have that support and understanding, and be able to move as quickly as possible. And this would support this curriculum reorientation, would support the new literacy, the big data, technology, humanities, new character, soft skills, which I really think is lacking. Even some of the best places like National University of Singapore, where I studied, I got to be at Hopkins. I really see missed opportunity that there's no kind of structured path to be able to teach this. Maybe this is something that they don't want to dabble with, because there are just so many different ways to do it. But why not? Why not make this something that can be learned in the universities, colleges itself? And of course, entrepreneurship skills. These are also equally important. Applied learning, internship are required. In fact, I personally benefited from this. My life changed once I attended an internship, and which introduced me to bioinformatics, and I got stuck with that in a good way. So, and like at the university where I am, our university has created something called U-Hub. This is an entity that's mandated to think about embedding entrepreneurship within the university, in each college, in each department, within each program. There should be some elements of entrepreneurship. Something is like a separate layer that would ensure that everybody that comes into the university goes out as some sort of an entrepreneur. Even if they do not want to pursue these, they have some of the basic understandings and the skills of what entrepreneurship is all about, so that they're equipped with this additional skill that may get activated when the time is right for them. All right. Now all this really blends into having a very good leader. We call this future leadership, And I think again, I'm really happy to see that your organization is very well placed, and it's already leading in many ways. So it's really to empower and inspire. There's this proverbial saying that you probably have heard. I think we all have heard: "Good teachers explain, great teachers inspire." And I'm really happy to see, that this is a place where faculty members, students are being inspired to reach greater heights, and that's something that we want to be able to grow further, support further, and really build on that. And and in terms of leadership, there are 4 types of intelligence in leadership. You have heard of IQ, you have probably heard of EQ, emotional quotient, and intelligence quotient, but there's also something, PQ, physical quotient, and IQ, the inspired, the soul. So you have the contextual, the mind, which is IQ, EQ, the heart, the soul, and the body. So it's also important that we nourish these other aspects of our growth, and not just focus on IQ alone. And being able to empathize, sympathize, and be able to connect and relate to others is equally important. And also not neglecting our physical health, our body, and our soul that needs to be nourished. Food for the soul. All right, so this is also something that needs to be taken care. And if your organization is able to come up with programs or plans to be able to incorporate these, integrate these with the journey that your faculty members and students go through, I think that's going to be really amazing, and something that not many places actually have. Even the best of the best have not seen these things. All right, and so there's a saying that chance favors the prepared mind. So we use the word luck, but luck is not just luck. Of course, opportunities come and go, and we need to be at the right time, right place. But also we need to be prepared to be able to recognize those opportunities. Otherwise, they will just pass by and we wouldn't even notice. And this preparation requires a lot of the things that we just covered. I think if we go through all that, our preparedness level will go higher. We will be able to attract more opportunities, and we will be able to grow and develop further, and hopefully for a future that's going to be better for everyone. And so that was the first part of my talk, and I want to kind of tie all this together with 2 big concepts. IR 4.0 that industrial revolution, that you're already familiar. I've covered this, but there's another concept, a parallel concept called society. And we are at Society 5.0 now. This was actually a concept that kind of stemmed out of discussions in Japan, and it's an idea of it's an aspiration of being in a society, at least for 5.0, that's human-centered and that balances economic advancement with the resolution of social problems. We have social problems. We need to be able to balance all this growth and not ignore those social ills. And by taking advantage of the parallel that's happening in the industry. So basically leveraging on Industrial Revolution 4.0 to bring benefits to the society, so that we are, we end up creating a very super smart society where the benefits really reach as many as possible, and help us reach that actual self-actualization, if you remember from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right, so these are concepts out there, and if you look at 5.0, we kind of started from hunting society and the more agricultural, then industrial, and then this is when Industrial Revolution kicked in 1.0, and then we became an information society, and we are now entering or part of this super smart society. You might not see it around you that much yet, and it depends where you are, but this is clearly it's already happening in some part of the world. There's a saying that the future is already out there, just not uniformly distributed. So if you travel a lot, you might see in some places where this is happening, but this is coming, this is happening. It's really up to us to be able to bring that future forward by preparing ourselves, so that we can really and not wait for others to do it for us, but we become the catalyst for this to happen. We got to make the BB that starting point. All right, so I'm going to quickly move on to the second part of my talk. Now that we have understood, the kind of time that we are going through, the changes that are happening, and how we need to prepare ourselves, brace ourselves, and really maximize and maximize to the fullest this disruption. I'm going to look at AI and ML for sustainability, and really realize how that it's a double-edged sword. Now, I'm going to present this from the perspective of my expertise, which is bioinformatics. So I'm going to talk to you about this from that perspective. I'm also going to avoid talking too much about precision medicine or healthcare, because I realize there's another expert that's going to be touching on that topic. So I don't want to overlap so much. So that's just a disclaimer. Now, biology is big science these days. You probably recognize that. But before we go into that, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Or what's the definition of bioinformatics? But I'm happy to note, that the college or the university. My apologies if I get it wrong. So I think it's a deemed university. So if your place, I'm happy to know that your place actually has a bioinformatics program, and my close friend. And someone I work closely with as part of EpiBionet is involved in that. He's involved in that. I actually have been to your place. I think this was a conference, INBIX or INSIP. I don't recall exactly. I was part of that. I visited and was really happy to see the development and the kind of programs that are being developed. So I think you probably know that the definition, but just to be fair to everyone who is joining, let me just cover this. So it's computational biology and bioinformatics. It's an interdisciplinary field that develops. So you have development, but you also have an application of computational methods to analyze large collections of biological data. So you basically develop, you apply these computational methods to store and analyze these biological data, to make sense of it, to solve biological problems. That's essentially, and it's interdisciplinary because it has AI, machine learning, which you could say is part of computer science. And of course, there's biology, there's math, statistics, physics, chemistry, all involved. The outcome of all of this is big data, biodata, and also oftentimes abiotic data. And we have, to put all this together to understand life as it is, and how life works and how life evolves and how we can fix some of the problems that we see out there. Just to make it even more simpler, you probably have seen this. Bioinformatics is essentially the two parts: data warehousing and data mining. And at the crux of all this is essentially analysis. And this is where AI is actually playing a very important role in many big ways. And health sciences is one of the areas where we see tremendous application of this. Now, bioinformatics actually underpins all various dimensions, from one dimension where you're sequencing the genome, to 2 dimensions where you're looking at interactions, to 3 dimensions where you're looking at structures, to even 6 dimensions where you're looking at images, bioimages. All right, so it's not just confined to protein sequence data, 1 dimension, but it goes beyond. And a lot of this is because of the leaps and bounds of the genomics, where technology and timing collided and prices have come really very low, where we are now able to do large-scale sequencing. In fact, million genomes are being sequenced by 2025. 30+ million genomes are expected to be sequenced. Pricing has come down from being billions to just $100. In fact, there's a saying that in the future, it'll be even cheaper than paying for public toilet. All right, so when it becomes that cheap to sequence a genome, what really matters is the mountain of data. How do we make sense of all that data? And the mountain of data, what is the scale of this mountain that we are talking about? If you just look at genomics, this is in the tune of 2,000 to 40,000 petabytes per year. And it's much larger if you compare to astronomy, which was a big data generator for many years. Now it's no more. And Twitter, of course, is a big contributor, but again, nothing compared to what genomics is providing. All right, so YouTube comes close, but the potential for genomics is much large, up to 40,000 petabytes. Now, you may not recognize petabyte, and I'm going to quickly show you something. But before that, this is just genomics. We are not even talking about healthcare data, which is everything else, besides just genomics, all the other omics, etc. So it's going to be even much bigger. And we really need people to be able to make sense of this data. We already struggle when we have like 1,000 data entries or data points. Imagine petabytes of data. We need a very different kind of a tool to be able to deal with these kind of problems. And with respect to data scale, just to help you, I think all of you should be familiar with gigabytes and terabyte. Then comes petabyte, that's 10 to the power of 15. But it doesn't stop there. It goes to exabyte, zettabyte, yottabyte, which is 10 to the power of 24. And when we hit yottabytes, they might come up with another name. All right. So, and I'm happy to report, I'm not exactly happy, but I'm happy to share that it should be noted that biological data is already in the tunes of exabyte. I think it's even hitting zettabyte. So we already there. We take all the biological data. That's the kind of scale. So it's just a matter of time when we will be quite significant in terms of yottabyte, and we will have a different kind of a problem to deal with. Scaling is going to be a big issue. All right. But the good news is, with all this data, we have all kinds of repositories. These are just some examples of the many repositories or data warehouses that are out there trying to help us deal with all of this. And some of these are becoming very smart thanks to AI. They are becoming something called living databases. They update on real time. You don't have to wait for weeks and months to be updated. So some of these are really leading in terms of allowing for search. It's like, you have a house and you have put things all over the place. Even if it's messy, you have a way of finding them. So it's not, of course, you need to organize it, but organizing it doesn't have to be just one way. There can be many ways to organize it. What's key is that you are able to find quickly what you're looking for. And this is where Google search is very good at. And that's why it has become quite popular, because we can quickly search what we want. And now, of course, it's being replaced with ChatGPT and other AIs. We get exactly what we want, and we can fine tune the outcome. I mean, the prompt to give us much more specific to what we exactly want. So many of these have been around, but they are also shifting gear and changing direction in terms of adopting AI to be able to better warehouse the data and better search and kind of extract the data that one would desire. And I think the other good news is we have data on lots of species, not just human, but you have all kinds of data for all kinds of species. I love to study viruses, and usually I go to viral databases, and we also have data on viruses, bacteria, fungi, you name it. There's data on all kinds of species out there, and they are generally available for free. So there's no cost attached, and it's just waiting for us to be able to do something with all this data and make sense of it and be able to use it, to create a better future. This is just for context. If you remember, many years ago, when a thesis would be just one of these questions. This is just a bunch of questions that is very simple for a database search. About 10, 15 years ago, it was already very simple. It's going to become even much simpler with AI. But I just want to highlight that each one of these questions that you see is actually, if I'm not wrong, an equivalent to a master's or PhD thesis. So something that was at some time equivalent to a master's PhD thesis is now just a simple search, and you get the answers to that. And this is for IL-10, which is a molecule in our body. This could be X, could be anything, and that's how rapid we are, and that's how rapid we can get answers. Actually, that's also how privileged we are to be able to elevate ourselves to ask higher level questions, because we don't have to spend 5 years of our PhD just to answer one of these. And of course, as these snowballs, we are going to be able to ask questions that we could never ask before. All right. So we have databases I mentioned, and they're shifting gear, becoming more AI driven, AI living databases. We also have tools, and these tools are becoming also AI driven, AI embedded, and they're taking advantage of AI technology to be able to serve better. So we have tools out there. And essentially, I think, we all can agree that bioinformatics is very important in all kinds of ways. And one of the areas where bioinformatics is making a big impact is precision medicine, personalized medicine. And this is the topic I don't want to go deep into, because you have another person talking about this. But very quickly, it's just that yesterday, our medicine was symptom-based. Today, you can think of it as pattern-based. Tomorrow, in the future, and this future is already somewhat here. In some places, it's going to be algorithm-based, where AI and machine learning are going to play a very important role to be able to pinpoint what exactly is wrong, so targeted therapies can be done. And I think one big breakthrough that actually happened quite recently, a few years ago, was for us to be able to predict the 3D structure of proteins from just sequence information, those amino acid codes. Just having that information was sufficient to be able to figure out how a protein would fall, because in our body, these proteins are not just strings of letters. They actually have a shape, not colors, but shapes. And AI, AlphaFold was able to crack this and actually was able to predict with a lot of reliable accuracy the 3D structure of proteins. I actually was in Liverpool recently attending a big conference of bioinformatics, and I got to listen to the talk by this Nobel Prize Nobel laureate John Jumper. He was there talking about the work that he did and how they ended up making that discovery, or basically solving that problem. And the takeaway from that was, industries are very well positioned to solve some of these big problems. Academia can be a little slow, and this is only a reminder that academia needs to work very closely with industry to in order to be able to really speed up some of these discoveries. Like we discover something, we publish, we wait, we get, it takes time to publish. For them, they do something, if it doesn't work, they push it aside and move forward. They don't worry about publishing and reporting. They are there to solve a problem. So I know that may not work in academia fully, but I think a bit of that culture should be embedded within academia, so that we can move as quickly as them, be nimble and agile, and so we can quickly make discoveries. And along these ways, I think I just want to share in terms of sustainability, for the problem that the opportunity that's presented by bioinformatics. In order to reap that opportunity, there's a problem that we need to solve, which is how do we train, how do we educate our bioinformaticians, or our students, the next generation, to be prepared to mine all this data. Even the doctors, who are coming out there soon, people will be going to them, this is my genome, tell me how you can help me, right? So they need to be prepared. Our next generation of students need to be prepared. So we actually created a consortium, and I'm happy to report that actually Dr. Harpreet is part of this paper. He's part of the consortium. Your organization is part of that. And we work together to think about the kinds of challenges that we have to overcome, not just any challenge, but a grand challenge that we have to overcome in the next 10 to 20 years, starting from now, thinking from now, in order to be able to prepare our students for that future. And these are the grand challenges that we have identified. There are 7 of them. I'm not going to go through the details, but I'm happy to report that the consortium is still working on these and looking for each one of these, what are going to be the ways we solve these problems. So we didn't just think of the problems, but also we are working towards the solutions. And I'm happy to report that your organization is actually part of this consortium. Thank you very much for being part of that effort. Important effort. And so moving on, and I'm just gonna go to the last part of my talk, generative AI driven bioinformatics. Bioinformatics is really huge. AI is playing a very important role, but I'm gonna zoom in and just focus on generative AI, and also use this to highlight the double-edged sword nature of Gen AI and how we need to be mindful, especially in the context of sustainability. So we all are very familiar with Copilot, ChatGPT. You have all the others out there, Grok and etc. You have your favorites. This is just an example. Here's Copilot here, and here's an example whereby for example, you can type something and you get a response very quickly. It would even give you some suggestions. Here's an example of a question that we're asking: are we currently experiencing mass extinction event? And it gives you an answer, and it's very quickly able to report this. You don't have to do Google search. Yes, many scientists believe we are currently experiencing, etc. So it provides you with the source, but of course we got to be careful that AI can hallucinate. It come up with answers that are not really true. It's just kind of filling the gap by itself. So you still have to be very careful, but still, nonetheless, I think it's a big leap from what we used to have, and it comes up with follow-up questions that you might want to ask. So generative AI refers to deep learning. If you remember the 3 circles, the concentric circles I showed, refers to deep learning models that can generate text, images, audio, 3D objects, and even music based on the data that they are trained on. All right, so. And of course, there's a lot of data that has been fed into creating this Gen AI, and then there's a technology out there, the GPT, that you can read further if you're interested. And they have, Sora, for example, which creates video, DALI that creates pictures, images, some really nice images that we probably may not even be able to generate by ourselves. Text-to-speech synthesis, WaveNet, etc. According to Bloomberg Intelligence, generative AI is expected to become a 1.3 trillion market by 2032. It's growing really, really big. And of course, you probably have heard that these companies haven't really made money. That's a different problem. I know they may have not really realized that, or have really kind of be able to realize that potential in terms of bottom line, but the potential is still there nonetheless. And of course, healthcare is going to be one of the application areas. I think we know all of this. This is just an example. This is an article that we noted recently. In Taiwan, a hospital actually deploys AI co-pilot to lighten workloads for doctors, nurses, and pharmacists. This is a country where you have like 2 doctors for 1,000 people, and they're really busy. And sometimes you have emergency, you can't find a doctor available, right? And they might be doing things that could be done by AI. And so they have taken that bold step to be able to deploy this in their hospital and reap the benefits of that. So now what they have is a single interface, one click, multiple database summary. It gives you medication list, surgical records, allergy history, lab test, patient ID, etc. And now the pharmacies are able to see double the number of patients that a pharmacy used to see. So these are just some of the examples of the benefits, and there are all kinds of other benefits out there. Here's just another one. The rise of generative AI in healthcare, where you have actually chatbots and interaction system, clinical documentation, medical literature summarization, even diagnostic and clinical decision support. And I think the other expert that has been invited will be able to provide you with more details. And then LLMs, large language models, is what drive these Gen AIs. They use AI and deep learning with a lot of data sets. And of course, these AIs are created by using these training data sets. So they need to be trained and tested before they're deployed. And these data sets that they're being trained run into petabytes. I've shared with you what petabyte means, 10 to the power of 15. So that kind of data was used to train. So a lot of effort has gone into feeding this. And of course, not just the training data that's huge, but the parameters, the various considerations that have gone into to the tune of billions. And of course, they have been fine-tuned in order to be able to come up with the quality of outcome that we see. And of course, they keep improving. And now we have something called explainable AI. AI is even able to, it's not just a black box. It just gives you an output, but it's able to explain why it came up with those responses. So thinking AI is already happening. If you use ChatGPT, you can choose an option where it can spend some time to think of the answer, and you get better answers. There was a saying from Sam Altman, the CEO, that the ChatGPT 5.0 is like a PhD graduate. Of course, there was a bit of a issue that they messed up a little bit. It was not able to do some basic stuff. I think they have addressed those, but nonetheless, it's a progression, and these LLMs are becoming much smarter. So going back to sustainability, all right. So why is this a double-edged sword? Why is sustainability an issue? Of course, AI is going to help us create a better future. But in creating that better future, we should not forget the cost at what it is creating that better future. We must be mindful of the environment, and not just be focused on money generating or just social well-being, but be oblivious to the impact that it has to the environment. So of course, and very nicely, UN has come up with these 17 SDGs, and we can look at some of these SDGs where bioinformatics is relevant, and I can tell you how bioinformatics is helping towards this SDGs. And then very quickly, I'm going to cover also what's the downside of that. All right, so with respect to zero hunger, quality education, responsible consumption and production, SDG 2, 4, and 12, I think I'm not going to explain to you what they mean, but bioinformatics is contributing through genomic selection for zero hunger, so we can get, seeds that are going to be of higher yield, maybe more resistant to diseases, more resistant to extreme weathers. Genomic selection is going to be very important. Disease management, antibiotic microbial resistance. And a very nice example, you probably, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, there's something called black soldier fly. It's harmless. It doesn't cause much harm to humans, but it's very good.
Second year engineering या ठिकाणी डान्स होणार आहे 3 डान्स या ठिकाणी होणार आहे 2
Mr. Uda, please mute yourself.
Thank you. The black soldier fly, they're actually very good for combating food waste. You can read more about them. They look kind of interesting. I have not seen it in Qatar, but maybe I'm not sure about India, but yeah, they are being utilized in a big way for this purpose. So this is how bioinformatics can help with some of these sustainable development goals. With respect to good health and well-being, you want to reduce inequality and ensure good health for all people. Bioinformatics through Gen AI is going to help, help us realize this personalized medicine, genomic medicine, with tons of this genomic data, go through all that mountain of data and really come up with these nuggets of gold that can identify the problems and help us address some of these concerns, especially the low-hanging fruits, and through DNA sequencing. So that mountain is going to be easily traversed thanks to this AI and Gen AI. So these are some of the benefits that we get to see. And then with respect to SDG 13, 14, and 15, I'm just keeping track of time. Climate action, life below water, life on land. Bioinformatics is going to help us through genetic selection for feed, efficient cattle, as you may realize or may not realize that, there's a lot of methane that gets released. And so reduction of that methane is going to be important for our environment. Biodiversity management, all right? So bioinformatics is facilitating all of this too. So it's not just protein and DNA, but taking a lot of that and other omics to realize the benefit for the community, for the population. All right. Now, the downside, this is where it's double-edged sword, is that it has an impact on the environment. All right. Generative AI has an impact. The servers that we use have an impact. So even if you don't use Gen AI, you're using servers, they have an impact. DNA sequences that we have, they also have an impact. Let's try to quickly understand these impacts and see what we can do to reduce some of this negative impact on the environment. So climate change, the main drivers of climate change today are human emissions of greenhouse gases. We call them GHGs. And these are the examples of these are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and these are some of the drivers for the what do you call the temperature change. As you can see from the chart here, there's an increase of 1 degree Celsius, or since 1850 or 1880 to 2024. I mean, this may seem very small for a long period of time, but then you also have this snowball effect. Once things kick in, these increases will become much more rapid. Just like the technology, developments that we see become more rapid once you have these fundamentals all set. And these are the sources of GHGs. Energy that we consume contributes 25%. Food that we eat actually contributes 24% of this human emission of greenhouse gases, transportation, construction, and others. So this is the breakdown, and we're going to focus on energy consumption. Now, energy with respect to AI, Gen AI, there are actually two key parts. One is training the model. So before the model is released, it gets trained, it gets tested, and if it's really good, then it gets released for us. So there's an energy consumption. Again, it's just an example, just to give us a taste of how much energy is being consumed. Training the model, that's one big area where energy is consumed in a big way. Inference, what does that mean? This is you and I using the Gen AI to ask questions, prompt it for something, get the responses, helps us understand what we're asking about. That's inference. There is also cost in using it. So training and using, these are the two key areas where Gen AI is having tremendous cost. What exactly are the numbers? Let's look into that. There's actually very little data on this, but there are some papers that have come out, and actually quite interestingly, just a few days ago and today, I actually went through a video that has some of the latest data that I would be able to share with you. It's not in the slide, but I'll just study first to study LLM inference, again us trying to understand performance from the perspective of energy resource. So this study, where they benchmark inference performance and energy cost of different sizes of LLM. So basically large language model data, and this is data from Meta AI, which is Google. Sorry, I think this is Facebook. Yeah, so this is for their engine. We benchmark on 2 GPUs. These are two NVIDIA V100 and A100. V100 is a little older model, less energy efficient. A100 is more energy efficient. We use 2 data sets, Alpaca and GSM-8K. GSM-8K was made up of mostly a large number of mathematical questions, so questions, some with answers use a cleaner energy source, not just these cloud providers, but personally and in your organization. If you can have few providers, those that are much more cleaner, that would be better. And be transparent about the energy use in your work where possible. And also with respect to your AI models, be very specific with your needs. Try to avoid using it if you can get the job done with Google search, Bing search, it's much better to go there. If you have a book that you can rely, cookbook, better to use. So only use it if it's really necessary. Even your thank you messages cost energy. You don't have to say thank you to it or hello and all that. So use it sparingly, but use it wisely and use it, in most concise way possible. And of course, like, you don't have to do live demonstrations. If you can record your utilization for use in classes, recording would be better than trying to do live demo all the time. That's going to cost energy. And of course, power management, using, when it's idle, switch off, use power strips so you can control different components. And of course, buy carbon offsets, pay for your utilization by investing in restoration of replantation of plants that are more green, energy efficient, carbon sink and all that. So even personal flights or compute, if you can use bus rather than a car, etc. All right, so that's in a nutshell. So I've basically covered, in summary, AI and machine learning, how it has the potential, a true potential, to really give us a very bright future, a very good future, not just for us, but for our kids, a sustainable future. But there is also a danger. We need to be mindful. Energy is just one example, but there are other things that we need to be careful, like being used for wrong, fake data, being used to, harass people and all that. There are those dangers that we need to be mindful. So with good use, proper use, hopefully we'll be able to, get closer to realizing Society 5.0 and really advancing to IR 5.0 that would feed into our benefit and live in an era that would be good for everyone out there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Asif, for your
Thank-
wonderful talk, as always. Dr. Kajal will proceed.
Yes, sir.
I hope I didn't overshoot the time. I was told 1 hour, 15 minutes, so I think I'm okay. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable inputs, which has added to our knowledge. And definitely, we all understand the importance of artificial intelligence and machine learning sustainability, which is the backbone of many modern programming methods. We thank you so much, sir, for your valuable suggestions. Thank you so much. I
My pleasure.
request all the participants to kindly just on their video for the photograph. We need to have the photograph for all the participants.
Dr. Kajal, while the participant will be turning their videos on, I just wanted to thank Asif once again. And he has touched many important points. I think we were not aware of the energy, consumption and the cost we are paying. Thank Asif for making us aware. And I just wanted to have your, opinion on one particular issue we normally face. You shown about business and technology gap. There's a gap between the technology when it comes and the business we develop. I think there is another gap, like technology when comes and adoption of technology. That is very different. The way that technology is introduced in the world and way it is, adopted by different parts of the world. And even between the parts of the world, even it goes to the rural areas where we have a real talent, but they are not aware of the the power of those technology. For example, AI, shaping the future, biomedical, shaping the future. But still, in many belts deep, deep in the the rural belts of India, for example, or any other country, or even in many other countries, there is a huge gap, and it is very much important to fill the gap so as to attain the Society 5.0 title for the entire world.
Yeah, very well said, Harpreet. It's a problem that has many moving parts. There are many stakeholders. So if we have a certain desire, we ourselves sometimes cannot do much without having all the other components moving with us. But nonetheless, I think we should keep pushing the agenda forward and try to get whatever support we can to be able to adapt and adopt. And often I think as the community, as the society and the country becomes more technologically adapt and becomes prepared, that is the equation of luck. It requires a lot of preparation. The more prepared we become, the more easily we'll be able to deploy these benefits to the masses. So it's a big effort. It requires everybody to be on board. It's not going to be sufficient for just a few of us. So it's a problem for the many, and it requires the many to come on board. And so it's a grassroots problem. It requires us to work. And that's why an education institution like yours is very important, to prepare that next generation who will become the leaders, the future leaders. And they, if they are well nurtured and prepared, they would be able to see these opportunities and bring forth those benefits to the community much easily and quickly than what it has been in the years in the past.
Thank you, Asif. Thank you very much.
Sir, there are some questions in the chat box.
Okay, are there some questions?
Harpi sir, in the chat box, there are some questions.
Okay. Yeah.
I
So
don't think there are any questions. Is there
I
any
see
question?
one. Do you think AI will ruin the critical thinking? Yeah, Harpreet, can I respond to that?
Sri Rekha ma'am, we are not able to hear you properly. Will you please speak again, or you can, message in the chat box?
Sir, I can read that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think AI will ruin the critical thinking?
All right. So first, in order to respond to that, we need to know what's the definition of critical thinking. So like a teacher, definitions are very important. So we are on the same page. My definition of critical thinking is the ability to think, thinking about thinking. Yeah, in simple terms, thinking about our own thinking with the goal of improving our thinking. All right. So I think it will not ruin, but rather help us better understand our way of thinking. It can become that bouncing buddy that we refer to help us analyze and critique and evaluate our way of doing things, our way of thinking, and provide suggestions on how we can improve our thinking. Because critical thinking is ultimately about improvement, and it's really up to us how we take advantage of this technology to analyze our thinking so we can become a better thinker down the road. Of course, we could become very lazy and start using it for almost everything. But we need to be careful. And again, sustainability and all that. We should only use it where necessary. We need to be responsible, and I think be a responsible citizen in its use, and use it only for the benefit. So that it's a balanced. When we become lazy and just ask it for everything, then our own capacity to think will become a little diminished. So that's the only danger. But otherwise, if used responsibly, I think it should not be a problem. It's only going to make us a better thinker.
Thank you so much, sir.
There's a question there. Technology is a necessary evil. We must keep trying to find ways to have more sustainability. Yeah, I mean, just like a knife, you can use it to cook a nice meal, or you can use it to create some damage or hurt someone. So it's really training us to be able to refrain from the negative and really embrace and enjoy the positive in the best way possible, and spread that happiness to as many as possible. So technology is just a tool. It's really up to us how do we use it. So we need to be responsible. And if you remember the 10 success factors, and I think if we inculcate this in our education, hopefully we will generate the next generation that would be able to make the best use of this technology for mankind.
I think we should give the participants 5-10 minutes break. And I think we are thankful to Asif. Asif, you have meticulously maintained the time as always. And that's what
Thank
I have
you.
always learned from you as a leader. And thanks for accepting our invitation. I know you are very much busy and still you have spent the time. I think, dear participant, Asif needs tons of kudos from our side, a huge round of applause from our side. And Asif, on behalf of the entire organizing team of this FTP, the in charge of the day, Dr. Kajal, Dr. Gagan, Dr. Seema, and Dr. Principal Ajay Sri ma'am, Dr. Anjana, and all the HMV team and all the participants. I think we enjoyed. You set the tone very well, and very well inning, very well beginning, and well begun is half done. And I'm very sure that this FTP is going to be a huge success. Thank you very much, Asif, once again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Harpreet, for your kind words. Thank you, everyone. I hope you learned something from there. At least one thing, don't say thank you to your AI. And that will save some energy. And don't worry, AI will not hunt you down when it becomes a robot.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it was a pleasure being here. And thank you again. And I hope we'll have much more future interactions down the
Thank you, Asif. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. A huge round of applause.
Thank you.